Jeff's clearly done that before. Whereas I haven't. So I'm in the blue corner representing London, and so I'm jet lagged, and I haven't eaten since 9 o'clock, and that was only Starbucks. So there's the caveat, so right up front. And I do. Someone said Woodstock, so I thought it was a Hendrix. Okay, so as I'm representing London, here's a quote from a piece of copyography about Oxford Street in London, which sort of contextualizes things for me. When it rains in Oxford Street, the architecture is no more significant than the rain, which I like as a quote a lot, but it also makes me think about context and sort of peripheral vision in a way, and I think the blogs that we're writing does this kind of approach. It comes from the periphery of things, and looks for the overlaps between things. And I also thought this quote from Johanni Palasma on the eyes of the skin is interesting as well, because he talks about this unfocused vision and the importance of that, and he wants a blurred vision and periphery again. So this loss of focus can liberate the eyes, he puts it. So I'm going to describe a loss of focus, and also show it's not because that's not actually in focus. But this is a post that I wrote about modern architecture, which someone else picked up on here. And this is a second post on the Fretboard Things about how quickly can you draw buildings, which someone picks up on here. Which then I combined into two further posts, and someone else wrote about that. So there's kind of this interesting conversation in blogs, which I think again makes it different to publishing and other forms and so on. This is called La Tannara in Sicily, and this is how I imagined it after I read a book by the travel writer Peter Robb, who's Australian. This is how I imagined the netted structure that the Sicilians used to catch tuna fish. It actually looks like this, and an old diagram I found online somewhere. And this is what's called the Chamber of Death, which is the final fish net, as it were. And when you think about netted architectural structures, that's Cedric Price's aviary from London Zoo. Talking of Cedric Price, then I developed this idea for the London Design Centre, which I thought would be nice if it wasn't one building, but it was actually a series of buildings connected in some way. Basically ripping off Cedric's Potteries Think Belt idea from the 60s, which I think is still massively important, much underrated. So this is the Thames, and these are all different buildings there that you could reside the design centre in. This is a sketch I did for one of them, which is the Battersea Power Station in London, for those that might recognise it. And I nicked the idea from Andrew Maynard, the Australian photographer. Why don't we actually position these things to preserve Battersea Power Station? These buildings on the building itself, when you couldn't tear down Battersea Power Station. Drawing, I think, is interesting because I'm usually associated well with writing, and what I try and do is do little sketches and things throughout and try and convey thinking that way. This is how I saw Barcelona, these series of incredibly dense, this is the Ciutat Bella, the old city, incredibly dense city forms, where people just take a chunk out but it sort of heals over. And so I nicked the roof of Morales' Santa Catarina market, because I thought this is almost like some kind of membrane over the city itself, the city of Barcelona almost heals its wounds magically in some way. The work at the Santa Catarina market was developed to sort of exemplifies that. It's built over this ancient old market structure. There's a modern form in and of itself. And so I started doing some photo montages. This one never made it online actually, so it's a world premiere here right now. Which it shows some of these old kind of disused Barcelona city blocks and the Santa Catarina roof sort of healing it from above. Next slide, please. Very little to say about this one. Thank you. And then you fun with Google Earth. That's another great thing that blogs do, fun with Google Earth. So this is that very same block that we saw originally, actually, that I found in Barcelona when viewed from above. So I could see the actual empty void space that had been kind of carved out of Barcelona. And I think that's interesting because these photos are older. And Google Earth is always 2 or 3 years behind the reality. This is actually mapping the original plan for Canberra onto the physical reality of Canberra. So Google Earth stretches things a bit, but nonetheless it was interesting to convey the plans and then look and see what the city form actually turned out like. And we can do this sort of thing now with satellite photography. And I like Google Earth a lot, as you can probably tell, but one thing I thought would be nice would be a time slider in it, so you can actually pull it back and sort of see Barcelona shift backwards through time. So pull this back to, that's about 1840 or something, 1880 maybe, because you see the server plan coming in there. And then slide that right back, going back to about 1415 or 1200 as far as I can get. Talking talking of systems and time, I think something which is interesting is music, and I write about that a lot. This is a John Cage record where he gave instructions for how to change your volume and tone controls at certain times throughout the record. And so it's not obviously architectural. I think the process of things changing over time is something architecture's always dealt with, or should deal with more perhaps. One thing I did in my sort of day job, as it were, was map out an episode of Lost over time in a graphical score style. So there's the episode being broadcast. These are all the different media responses to that one way or another, which sort of conveys this unfolding of the thing. And other systems of time or movement are interesting to me. So football is something that being European I care deeply for. Soccer, I believe, was no here. So this is a goal that the Argentina scored in the last World Cup, mapped out over time, which again looks almost like a netted structure from Cedric Rice's Avior, actually, but just there to illustrate a different point. Video games is another angle, again, kind of on the periphery of architecture, which is interesting. These are shots that I took in Santa Monica. This is me in Grand Theft Auto in the same kind of place. When I first went to Santa Monica, I thought it looked strangely familiar, and I realised that I've played it. So I positioned my character and took a picture of myself on screen standing in front of the buildings in GTA in Grand Theft Auto, and then tried to map it onto the closest analogs I could find in Santa Monica. I realized they did an amazing job of representing Santa Monica in some way, but I had this strangely unearthly disembodied presence of myself in this real space that I'd previously experienced there. Here's another thing. This is actually shots of the University of Queensland in Brisbane, and which is wildly overgrown in this beautiful subtropical style that has this sort of 70s, late 60s architecture going on here, either by James Burrell, who's a much underrated architect, Australian architect. And it's almost like the undergrowth is clawing it back, and it made me think about colonisation of spaces, and again, as well as video games, films are something that Jeff's written much better than I have about this. Films and video games have architecture which is worth writing about, it's hugely influential. So running, which is what this is, became an analogy for me to looking at Australia and the colonisation of those spaces. And that's the end of the show.